Ready?
Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started here on our very important meeting of February 21st, 2019. Vin, we take the roll call, please?
Sure. Deputy Mayor Long.
Here.
Council members Achara.
Here.
Napolitani.
Here.
Shepard.
Here.
And Member Luciano.
Here. Everybody please rise for a pledge of allegiance. And please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer thereafter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good to see everybody here. Very neat opportunity here. We noticed that February 21st, 1849, 170 years ago today, Ocean Township convened for its first meeting as Ocean Township. That's when we finally had a Senate resolution here, number 51, that incorporated us and made us separate from the other towns. So very good stuff. We're going to come down from the dais shortly. We're going to have some folks really give us the history better than I can do, that really know what's going on. But if you notice, look around the room, we had some of the pictures here adorning the walls, and that's basically some of the history of Ocean. Early days, most of it's pre-World War II, before we had developments, mostly farms. If you notice, a lot of farms, a lot of guys over there in overalls doing the hard work that it took to get Ocean going, old fire departments. Very cool stuff. And the one over there by the clock, I liked, was one of my favorites. That little house, it's called the White Homestead there on Lake Avenue. That's probably one of the oldest homes in Monmouth County. It was in Asbury Park originally, built there, and then moved to that location. And I think that house goes back, Paul, 1600s? 17? Yeah, around there. So we always think of the Eden Woolley farm and the house that we have that we display, the one in the back there that's on our cake. But actually that one predates them all. So very cool. In fact, my brother Tim sold that house one time, probably about 15 years ago. We're like, wow, it's pretty cool. Had timbers in the crawl space. Anyway, so before I prattle on, let me just open up the meeting. Then we'll come down from the dais and introduce some cool people here tonight. All right. So the notice requirement of the Open Public Meeting Act for this meeting has been satisfied. An annual notice was sent to the Asbury Park Press, Coaster, posted in the Town Hall, and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk on December 27th, 2018. There are two fire exits, one to my left here in the back of the room, and that takes you out to the parking lot, and then one to my right, of course, here, and this will take you out to the front parking lot. If you have a cell phone, it's good to have it on. You can take pictures or whatever, that's fine, but we just ask that you turn the volume down, and if you need to make a call, just go out into the hallway. All our meetings are taped and archived, and it interferes with the audio, so we always ask that you turn that off, the ringer, and try not to have a private conversation back there. Okay, without any further ado, we will come down from the dais. Everybody join me? Sure.
No.
Chris, you gotta open the meeting. Did you open it?
Nope.
Batteries, I just put them in.
What? All right, so we have to get picked up on the mic for... Can we plug that in here?
Where'd it go?
Oh, you can unplug it,
Yeah,
yeah.
let me plug one. Little audio problem. We'll be with you 1 second. We'll just plug it in here. Yeah.
Technical difficulty.
We'll work on it. We'll make it work. Technology, Express. All right, so we got to go this way tonight. This is how they do it in court, but we're not in court today, so I wouldn't worry about that. Anyway, really cool, as I mentioned, 1849. On this day, there's probably 3 people in the room, but they were here, incorporating Ocean. Here's the original. I'm going to leave this up here so folks can take a look at it. It'll be over on that table there. Very cool. And it just tells you how we separate it and everything. Before we get started with our historian, Paul and Marge, and our friends from the Historical Museum, we got a special friend here from our county, Freeholder Director Tom Arnone. Let's give it up for Tom. Come on up, Tom. And In the interest of time, Tom's got another meeting, of course. He's running 53 towns here in Monmouth County, and 620,000 people are waiting for his presence.
And
at some
Township's the most special out of all of them.
darn right.
So I would like to. I know you did, and I would actually like to ask our county clerk and our sheriff to also join with me because it's very special when I know myself and when our county clerk and our sheriff could come to a town and celebrate, history like this, which is what Monmouth County is all about. And it's ironic. It's probably close. Today I was in Asbury at an event, and actually John was there with me there, and and I look back and it brings back like history, and this is where I'm from, this part of the region of the county, and all the freeholders have different parts of the regions of the county, and it's all special to each and every one, but you have to be truthful. Your areas are somewhat more special to you there, and that's what this is. And I have family members that have businesses here in town. I have family members that live here. Our county clerk lives here, and so it's very special. So with that, it was very important for me to be here, and unfortunately, I can't stay for the rest of it. And would you mind if I read this thing? Because I think it'd be important. Whereas the Township of Ocean was created by an act of the New Jersey State Assembly on February 21st, 1949. With the original boundary stretching from the Shrewsbury River to the southern tip of Avon, which is really my neighboring town where I live in Neptune City. Whereas the act provided that the inhabitants of the Township of Ocean shall hold their first annual meeting on the second Tuesday in March 1849. And first to be elected to the governing body were William Matz, Eden Woolley, George Shafto, Benjamin Corliss, and Joseph Barclay. And whereas 170 years after its inception, Ocean Township, a close-knit overall community that prides itself on social diversity and whose strength derives from its involved citizenry, with dozens of volunteers serving as a variety of board commissions and commitments. And whereas today the Ocean Township, known as a community of gracious living, is proud of an outstanding public school system and many municipal amenities, including an executive park system, a public library, a community pool, a tennis facility, a 9-hole golf course, and comprehensive offering of recreational programming. Now, therefore, the Monmouth County Board of Chosen Freeholders, myself, Deputy Director Patton Preveduto, Jerry Scharfenberger, Lillian Barry, and Sue Kiley, joins with the mayor, the governing body, and the citizens of Ocean Township in celebrating this auspicious occasion by proclaiming this day, February 21st, 2019, to be known as Ocean Township's 170th anniversary day in the county of Monmouth. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for that. We're gonna display this prominently in this room. I think going forward, I think that's wonderful. Thank you, Freeholder Director, for that. Good. It's okay. I don't bite. The gloves don't come off for another month. Now, this is our star reporter from the Coaster,
Yes.
Don Stein.
I know that.
That's right. We have one from the Historical
We gotta wait
Museum.
for Don.
We have an old camera here. We'll take our picture upside down. It's from the museum. You can use that one, Don.
Don, we'll send it to you.
Can anybody
Oh,
draw
let
a good
Don.
artist
We'll wait for
rendering?
Don.
He's got to get the right shot.
We might not be here for the next 170 years.
Paul, do you have your camera, Paul? Please.
Don't you have a cell phone?
Too funny. All right. Thank you. Thank you guys again for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're going to stick around, right? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. We have another proclamation coming up. So we have with us our assemblyman for the District 11 here, Mr. Eric Hotellin. And Gordon, you have something for us? We have cake and coffee for you.
Well, Mayor, I'd just like to congratulate you and the council here for 107, carrying on for 170 years, and you have the ball now. It's your turn to run, and you guys have done a great job up to this point. And I want to wish you continued success So with that, we have a joint legislative commendation from our legislative office, Senator Van Gopal, Assemblywoman Joanne Downey, and myself, and we want to wish you the best. And
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Eric. We appreciate it. Again, we're going to have these proclamations and commendations prominently displayed here when we can get them affixed to the wall. You got that one, huh? Oh, one more. Great, thank you. One of our museum directors. Great, thank you so much for that. Thank you for joining us. You're welcome to stay for coffee and cake. At this time, we're going to ask our Paul Edelson and Marge Edelson. You want to come up too, Marge? One of our curators and directors over at the Historical Museum. Yeah, we have to use this, folks. Yeah, but we got to be picked up on the audio. Come on up, Marge. Yeah, a lot of people can boom their voice, but this helps us. So I'll hold it for you, Paul.
I can hold it.
Oh, yeah, you decided you needed two hands, right?
It is pretty good. Well, today is a celebration of the forming of Ocean Township. The date, February 21st, 1849. Let's go back and picture 1849. Monmouth County had 30,300 residents, and in 1849 the state legislature created from Monmouth County the Township of Ocean, which ran from Seabright to what is known as Avon at Shark River. All the land along the ocean, and thus the name Ocean Township. The town was a rural farming community. One of the first councilmen was Eden Woolley, for whom the museum is named. The library, human services, and the museum are still on Woolley family land from the 1600s. Over the years, many towns, organizations broke off and formed new towns. The first was Long Branch in 1867, which today has 30,000 residents, the same as Monmouth County had in 1849. The last was Lock Harbor in 1957. That left us with 11 square mile town with no ocean front. The town has grown and transformed. In 1950, we had 6,700 residents and 32 farms west of 35, none today. I would say that in 1950, I remember riding my bike down Deal Road, and at the corner of Deal Road and 35 was a stop sign. And you went across and went up to Kepwell Farm where you could go swimming.
Was it hard riding it with that big wheel in the front and that little one in the back?
Yeah, it was. And Abraham Lincoln was with me. So, I must say that this past summer, Mayor Siciliano, in preparation for the 170th birthday, asked the museum for old pictures, which I'd like to see in preparation for this event, and he has completed that. And to talk about that is my wife, Marjorie, who is a trustee of the museum and one of the founders of the museum a number of years ago.
Switch spots, Marge. Come on over. By the way, Margie has another distinction, probably the longest member of Phillips Avenue Beach.
Okay.
But I give you a shout out there.
Right. About 25 years ago, Arcadia Publishers came to town all over New Jersey looking for picture histories of the individual towns. They came to us, and we were at the museum at the time, and my friend Kay Zimmer and I had written an updated history of the township back in the bicentennial year. So it seemed like a great fundraiser for the museum. So we had some pictures of the oldest houses in the museum, because that's what we had been doing, is marking the oldest houses. But we needed more, because in order to do this, you needed 200 pictures that told the history of the town. So we went around town, and we were really fortunate because there were still a lot of longtime residents that lived here. Eddie White, who had the grocery store. We had Al Woolley, who had been a former mayor, Jim Garrity. A lot of local people had stuff and pictures that they loaned us, and you'll see some of them around. Some of the oldest houses, and I have to excuse myself because Chris was right. The White House was actually built in 1678. So that is the oldest, one of the oldest houses in Monmouth County. And quite a few of the other houses we have here are 1700 houses. and they're still, some of them are still in use. The Woolly House that we're in, the oldest part, is built in the mid-1700s. So there's a lot of history right here. Some of the other things you'll see around are very interesting if you take the time, and if you don't have one of the books, we have plenty of them at the museum to sell. But one of the most charming events that I had in getting these pictures is the picture that we chose for the cover. These are the World War I veterans. The Ladies Auxiliary of Oakhurst School had a dinner for all the returning veterans, and they're in their uniforms. And I got the picture from Phyllis Miller, who was one of the ladies at that time that entertained these men. She had the picture, you'll see it right over there, and she named all but 2 of the people, and she must have been probably close to 90 at the time. So I give her a lot of credit. But anyway, this book tells a lot of the picture history of our town. And if you take your time and look around, you'll see some of the charming things that were here and some of the things that are still here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marge.
This is for Adrian.
Okay. Oh, no, don't go anywhere. Before you guys sit down, I think it would be nice if all the museum folks come on up. All you guys volunteer. It'd be nice. Want to get a picture here for the coaster. Don't be shy. Come on up, Peg. Come on. Everybody, these are our volunteers, folks. Give it up for them. They really helping us preserve the history of Ocean Township, really, which enriches us and makes us a better town. Come on in tight there. Yep. I'm going to put the mic down while you...
It's okay.
Okay, you good over your wife?
I'm right here.
Get these folks. If you have to cut us out, it's okay. Do that. Oh wait, you know what? Let me get the sheriff and our county clerk while they're here. Come on, yeah.
I got them.
You got them? Okay.
Chris,
We're
it's
going to come up in a
difficult
minute.
enough as it is.
Go ahead.
Hurry up.
And that guy in the back, I know him.
The battery's gonna die. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. All right. Thank you, folks, for doing that. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Yep. Okay. We have a little bit more before we get into our business. I'm going to bring up our county clerk, Christine Hanlon, an Ocean resident. We're very proud to have her living here in Ocean. So, Christine, you have something. And Sheriff, do you want to come up at this time? You represent the county at one of the highest levels. Our Sheriff, Sean Gold, everybody. Give it up for him. Why don't you stand next to our clerk, Sheriff, and then she can do her little presentation on what's that wire. I'll hold this for you.
Sure. Okay, so when I found out about the 170th anniversary of Ocean Township, I got really excited and wanted to find something to give to all of you that possibly I could find in my archives division in the county clerk's office, because we have so many historic special records in the county clerk's office. So I contacted the archivist and I said, what do you have, for Ocean Township dating back many years? And they started to send me pictures of freeholders who came from Ocean Township and certificates of incorporation, things that dated back a long time. And I said, those are nice, but that's not good enough. So I put my thinking cap on and I decided to contact my map room supervisor, Jane Collier, and find out if she possibly had anything relating to the Township of Ocean. So she got all excited. She did her research and she came to me with a wonderful find, and hopefully this is not something that you have already. But we were able to locate the first map of the Township of Ocean.
Wow, really?
And that map is dated February 21st, 1849. And it was filed in the office of the county clerk on February 21st, 1849. Which was very exciting, and it was just like a paper copy of a map. I said, this is nice, but it's not good enough. So I then contacted archives again, and the archives division, they said, oh, we forgot. we have the original map of the Township of Ocean that was filed at that time. And they were able to provide me, it's not in very good condition, but they were able to provide me with a digital copy of that map, and which I produced for you here behind the lovely curtain.
Oh, great.
Over here, so I'm going to go
So
over
let's
here.
go over here.
I'm going to
Oh, we're good. I got it. Wow, check this out. Woo!
And this is the original. The reason why it was filed in the county clerk's office is because all subdivision maps.
I'm sorry, we got to get you on, and the camera's that way, so.
Sorry.
Watch yourself. Come here, young lady.
Okay.
All right. We're working with makeshift equipment tonight.
So the reason why it was filed in my office, I wasn't there at the time, thank goodness, but all subdivision maps have to be filed within the county clerk's office. And this was a subdivision when Shrewsbury Township was broken into two parts. So this shows you the entire Township of Ocean that went all the way to the Shark River, all the way up to Seabright, and over to, and we have the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. And it's very exciting. It was filed, today, 170 years ago. And so I wanted to reproduce it for you. And I believe that this map was drawn by, I gotta get the name. Excuse me, it's back here. I'm gonna get it for you, but it's important.
Okay, historical footnote here.
Okay, historical.
Woolley?
Benjamin Woolley Corley's, I believe, created this map. And hopefully someday we'll know for sure, but as you just heard earlier today, Benjamin Woolley Corley's was a resident of the Township of Ocean. He was in the 1850 census as living in the Township of Ocean, and he was one of the first members of the governing body in the Township of Ocean. And the reason why I think that he created this map is that there is an original map. Some of our friends from the museum might know about this other map, but there is another map that is being preserved as we speak that was the original Township of Shrewsbury. And that map was drawn in January of 1849, and that map was believed to have been drawn by Benjamin Woolley Corley's, who was a known surveyor. And everything from this map is very similar to that map. So it may, be known to be true at some point in time that he created this map. But I wanted to present it to you so that you have it, and I have another copy for the museum.
Oh, so we don't have to fight over it. I was just going to say.
They're going to take their own
Oh,
copy.
that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That's wonderful stuff. So, Marge, you and Paul, and Peg, you guys have your own copy here. I think that's fantastic. We're going to put the microphone down so nobody trips, and you guys stand over here. It's not my fault.
Whose phone is that?
Thank you, everybody, for commemorating our 170th birthday. Wonderful. At this time, we're going to take a short recess, and we're going to celebrate with having a little bit of cake and coffee. Please join us, everybody. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to break recess and start our meeting here. The purpose of the public portion is to solely ask questions, understand resolutions and vouchers that appear on this agenda, not an occasion for a public hearing on an ordinance. All questions not related to an item on this agenda should be asked during the public comments portion at the conclusion of the meeting. We're going to do things a little differently here since we were commemorating our 170th birthday. In the interest of time, we have to leave this meeting room at 7 o'clock because there is a zoning board hearing. So instead of going right to the resolutions, we may have to hold those. It depends on how much time we have on the clock here. So we're going to go to vouchers. That's our bills list, which we must do. And then we're going to go right into ordinances. And then, if we have time, I'll open it up and we'll go right to the consent agenda if we have time for that. All right. So we need somebody to open up the. Yeah. So that being said, notwithstanding the resolutions, anybody has any questions or comments on the vouchers or on ordinances that appear on the agenda, now's the time to come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. And microphone's going to be this little handheld one tonight because our other one's not working.
Yes, it is. I plugged it in.
Not yet. At the end, we'll have public comment. This is just for if you have a comment on our vouchers only right at this time. We'll do ordinances in a moment. We'll open that up. No? Okay. Seeing and hearing nobody.
The party, they didn't.
Tonight we have vouchers in the amount of, where are we, Vin? $12,197,761.59. Someone please offer.
I'll offer.
Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Long.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Napolitani.
Yes.
Shephaka.
Yes.
And Mayor Sulciano.
Yes, except for those which I would have a conflict. So tonight for, this is introduction.
Got it.
Oh. We're right up to here. Oh, we're moving right up to adoption. Okay. So tonight we have ordinance number for adoption, ordinance number 2317. Ben, would you read the title?
An ordinance authorizing the sale of township-owned real property not needed for public use pursuant to NJSA 48:12-13.
Yeah, and I'm going to make on that, there is one correction on item 9 of this ordinance. In that paragraph 9, it says, the second sentence, the contract purchaser shall have the option of having a single deed for 8 separate deeds. It's 2 separate deeds, not 8. So we're making that correction. 2 separate deeds, not 8 for the subject properties. Okay. Someone please open the public hearing on ordinance number 2317.
I move to open the ordinance, the public portion of the ordinance for 2317.
Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Long.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Napolitani.
Yes.
Shephaka.
Yes.
And Mayor Sulciano.
Yes. Anybody wishing to be heard on ordinance 2317, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing her, come on up, sir. State your name and address for the record on ordinance 2317. Up here.
The microphone's over there.
On the table.
Oh.
You pointed to the
Scott Sharp in Wanamassa. Mayor, can you get...
I don't know if that's on. Talk into it.
Hello?
No, it's just got to be turned
Having trouble with that one too.
on. No, it's just got to
I think it's on.
Underneath, flip the switch. Flip the switch.
Wow.
Okay, Scott Sharp in Wanamassa. Mayor, can you, in kind of plain language, explain 2317? Where is this property? Because somebody said, oh, it's over by where the Poplar Brook houses that used to flood, and the township bought all those and whatever. Or I don't have all the history, but is this property, subject to flooding, or
No.
is there a developer who has come to you or others that is interested in this property?
No, so the property you're talking about, Poplar Village, which had 96 senior homes built in the 70s, was prone to flooding. And after numerous floods, we finally, after Sandy, decided to eliminate the back 66 units and kept the top 32 or 64, whatever. And so that was preserved. Those 9 acres was given back to nature. This lot fronts Roosevelt Avenue. Okay, so it's right next to the old Hunt estate, right over there. And so what it was, it's a piece of property that we've owned for a long, long time. At one time, I was going to offer it to the VFW for a kind of a memorial for a Veterans Memorial, but they did something on site at the VFW. They didn't need to use that property, so we decided, while the market's good, let's sell that. It'll help us with our budget on other items that we work on throughout the year. So the back half we're cutting it into 3 lots, actually 2 lots here in the front, and then the back lot's going to go to the Poplar Village so they can have a recreation area, a facility, and laundry area, etc. etc.
And just to clarify, the 64, units that were taken out, that was done with federal funding.
Thank you. Anybody else? Someone please close the public hearing on ordinance 2317.
I move that we close the public hearing on ordinance number 2317.
Second?
I will second that.
Deputy Mayor Long,
Yes.
Council Members Achara,
Yes.
Napolitani,
Yes.
Shepherd,
Yes.
and Mayor Sosiano.
Yes. Action please on ordinance 2317.
Move for the adoption of ordinance number 2317
And publish according to law.
and published according to law.
We'll do that. Second?
Second.
Deputy Mayor Long,
Yes.
Councilmember Achara,
No.
Napolitani,
Yes.
Shepherd,
Yes.
and Mayor Sosiano.
Yes. Ordinance has been adopted. For introduction tonight, we have ordinance 2318. And would you read the title, please?
An ordinance to Township of Ocean authorizing the private sale of non-conforming real property known as a portion of Block 140, Lot 98, to a contiguous property owner of Block 140, Lot 99, pursuant to NJSA 48:12-13B5.
All right, someone please introduce ordinance 2318.
I introduce ordinance number 2318.
Second?
I will second it.
Deputy Mayor Long,
Yes.
Councilman Shara,
Yes.
Napolitani,
Yes.
Shepherd,
Yes.
and Mayor Sosiano.
Yes, and that'll have its public hearing on March 21st, 2019. I think what we're going to do, because I think folks want to come up and speak a little bit tonight for public comments portion. So, if we don't mind, we're going to hold and carry. We have a meeting next week, right, Vin?
Correct.
So, on the 28th. So, at the 28th meeting, we'll go through the rest of the agenda. So, all those items that are on resolution items will be carried until the 28th. So, at this time, if anybody has anything that they wish to discuss with the township business, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Are you going to do council reports?
Anything germane to Ocean Township that you wish to discuss with us, now would be the time to do that. Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be on the agenda. Doc?
007 Vinny.
Got it.
Mike, I brought this up several times. Stop signs.
The last I was told by the engineer is that the state was not going to put any in there. I will try again
Where is this?
on the 66.
On 66 as you exit 18.
Yeah. Since I was told since it's a speed up or speed down ramp, they weren't going to do it. But it's worth a shot again.
Yeah, I think that once they have some fatalities there, they'll change their mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Anybody else? Sir, from the back, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Mayor, my sympathies for your loss.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. My name is Bill Kastning. I'm the Executive Director of Monmouth Conservation Foundation. And for the record, I can provide you with this insight.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Monmouth Conservation Foundation is what's called in the vernacular a land trust. But what that really means is we're a nonprofit 501c3 organization whose mission is to preserve open space throughout Monmouth County. And it has been brought to my attention and our interest about the 32 acres that's obviously being discussed or being carried right now till whenever. We are concerned about the situation of it going entirely from forested land to quite intense development, and we would prefer.
Other way, pull it away from you.
Oh, pull it away.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
We would prefer. Most of the time, you put these things in your mouth.
Yeah. This one they can pick it
A
up.
great voice.
So anyway, we are concerned about the nature of the development and its intensity. And certainly, they're not making any more open space unless you intend to declare an area in need of redevelopment. That's one way you can create open space. But I don't think that's happening in this town, so we're very concerned about this particular parcel being abused. And you know the history. Oh, by the way, my organization helped save Gunning Island, which is still part of your township. Cool. Worked with the Senator Lawton at that point in time to make that happen. And I always find it interesting that you guys don't have any waterfront, but other than some islands that you can't use or get to except by boat. Anyway, I'm also a certified planner by trade, and one of my concerns is that there seems to be inconsistency between your master plan and your development regulations. And that should be a red flag for you, in that those things have to be consistent, and if they are not, you are in legal jeopardy. So I caution you on moving ahead with the development as proposed because of that inconsistency. And I would request that you consider long and hard that that has to be consistent. And if it isn't, make it consistent. And of course, the way I'd like to see you make it consistent is not by developing it, but declaring it as open space. I understand the location is, very desirable for commercial development. But it's lasted this long. It also has some heritage, American Indian heritage, that one should consider. Thank you for saving the house and moving it. And I enjoy seeing all these old pictures here. I'm kind of a historian too, and my brother has written one of those books for West Virginia, for Virginia. So I can appreciate the history, but whenever you develop something, you harm the history of the town. It's good that you noted what it was, but what it was is no longer what it is. And we would ask that you consider long and hard about not proceeding with the development of this, not entering into a resolution that allows you to enter into an agreement with the Stop and Shop organization. I don't pretend to want to deny them what's a fair market value for their parcel, but understand that there could be that an owner can get the money out of it if there's a partnership of people who want to preserve it, and I would like to see the town be one of those partners. I also understand you had a referendum in the fall to start collecting an open space tax, but you haven't created the legislation yet to do that.
Well, we have.
Have you?
Yeah, we all but one voted on it. Mr. Char was against
it.
Okay,
so when is the tax being?
Third quarter.
Third quarter. Okay. Unfortunately, that's too late for you to go after Green Acres funding, this funding round, and it happens every 2 years.
Right.
So you've missed the opportunity of asking for making an application to Green Acres by the end of the month. My organization will work with you. We bring money to the table. We bring partners to the table. And even though this is pricey, if you wanted to make it happen, we could make it happen. The owner gets out from under a bad situation. I know there's a discussion about rateables, and that the fact that the development would bring in what is considered significant tax revenue, but the rateables rate is always, or chase is always a problem. You always end up losing money because open space doesn't sap the resources. You end up with a net positive, whereas usually with subdivisions and developments you do not. So I urge you all to rethink the direction you're going. We'd be glad to work with you in making it happen to preserve this parcel.
So let me ask you something. You don't actually have the money for us.
We can get money, and there are partners, and the county has open space grants, albeit very small. The state Green Acres program provides funding. That's a stable source of funding now from the corporate business tax. It isn't money that is using taxpayer dollars anymore. It's using corporate business tax dollars, and probably most of those dollars aren't coming from within your organization, so it's within your municipality. It's probably beneficial to use that money because it comes from sources outside. So this year there's up $77 million available, and next budget cycle will go up to about $120 million of monies. So there's significant funding out there. So we can facilitate pulling it all together. We can partner by also bringing some money to the table, albeit it isn't going to be a sufficient slice of what is necessary to preserve this. So that's the story, and I'd like you to consider saving the park.
No, we are, listen, actively right now, I think everybody knows, been negotiating with the developers to preserve a piece of that property. Not all of it, but as much as we can. And so we're going to need to use some of the open space tax to facilitate that. You know, if the land swap doesn't work out, because the land swap we have versus what they want to swap with us, there's an inequity there in value. So we're probably going to need some of that, but you know, we can tie in with some of your funds also to help preserve a piece of that property. By all means, we'll do that.
And what piece are you looking, and how much of the 30 acres?
Up to 17 acres.
17 acres in the rear?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's important to have significant buffers between those varying uses. The open space.
That would do it.
Yeah. You know, the park space is, you know, passive and whatever.
Sure.
And of course, Highway 35 is very intense. And we look at things throughout the county. You've probably heard up north in 35 in Middletown. There's a big brouhaha there on some significant development. So the story is pretty much the same. It ain't making no more open space.
No, absolutely.
It's better to preserve what you can.
Listen, and I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. Other than our chief financial officer, I don't think anybody sitting up here is really thinking about, oh, let's build on there so we can get tax dollars, because frankly, we're only 20.4% of whatever tax revenue comes in. The school, county, fire department, they get their share of it. So that doesn't motivate us at all. I don't know if you know the whole history, but our attorney's here. But we're in a lawsuit on that property because we tried to preserve it in 2005, which triggered a lawsuit. And so it's not that we're trying to pass a resolution to help them develop. The resolution merely states that in the event that they do get an approval, they drop the lawsuit, because that was a concern from people last year. Well, what happens? Even if they build on it and get approval, it doesn't mean they're not going to come back and sue you for the 12 years that we've had them, you know, prevented them from building or developing their property. And so that's really what that agreement's all about. Really not about us telling them they can go ahead and build on it. And the master plan, I think Mr. Orbis can discuss that also, but that's been reviewed and revised, and I think to accommodate that. Right? Marty?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and part of this is currently pending in court, so I don't want to get into too much detail. But and I'm guessing you know the history. I don't know what you know about it, but this property was not 32 acres. It was originally 74 acres, and the then owners basically transferred 42 acres to the township. So we did already take. Not take, because we paid for it, but we paid a very reasonable price compared to fair market value. Green Acres was involved, and we got 42 acres back in whatever year that was. And so this was the other 32 acres that part of the agreement was it would be rezoned and to this commercial development. At some point, as I'm sure you also know, the town changed the ordinance, which prohibited the then developer from developing what they had hoped to develop, and the lawsuit did follow. And since that lawsuit was filed, which was in 2005, just to give you, that's based on my understanding, about 14 years ago, that lawsuit has been filed, dismissed by consent, refiled, dismissed by consent, refiled, with an understanding everybody preserved their rights. And the whole idea was to, if we could find a solution that made sense to all the parties, we would resolve the case if we could. If not, we would litigate the case. The point here is that over the course of that 14 years, there have been many proposals for the development of this site that have been submitted to this and the predecessor council. Basically, each one of those proposals were much more what's the word I'm looking for, densely developed than this proposal currently. They had less buffering, and as a result, they were always rejected. And like I'm saying, for 14, 15 years, each proposal was rejected. It wasn't until this developer, who also came in with a much more densely populated residential in the back and more commercial in the front, but ultimately we got to a point, and people can disagree with that, but we got to a point where we felt it was a reasonable way to develop the property. It settled a lawsuit. We get traffic improvements along Deal Road and in the form of both a jug handle and the widening of Deal Road, which would hopefully help some of the traffic issues. But there were a lot of different aspects and reasons why this was done. In terms of the master plan, again, that's part of the litigation. But the litigation, it's clear from my perspective and from our planner's perspective that the proposed, that the zoning ordinance, when it was proposed, doesn't have to comply in full. It has to substantially comply with the master plan. That master plan has been amended several times, and there was no question in the planner's mind, who's been the planner for 30 years, that the proposed ordinance does substantially comply. That in 2006, the property was rezoned, which would have allowed for the entire 32 acres to be developed commercially, much more building on the site, less green, and with 100 residential units above the commercial. So from the planner's perspective, and I think from a reasonable person's perspective, this did substantially comply, and it reduced what had previously been zoned for. So the resolution that was on tonight's, that are going to be carried with all the other resolution, just deals with, as the mayor said, if this goes through, doesn't mean it does, but if it goes through, then the case is over. And as the mayor indicated, when we had our meeting on March 8th, there were several members of the public, including one who went into specific detail, wanting to make sure as a taxpayer that if they get their approval, that they couldn't then come after us for either damages or attorney's fees, which I said I don't believe they could, but it wasn't solidified. All we were doing was dismissing and refiling. So the idea this time was to say, okay, we're dismissing, but if you get your approval, you can't come back at us again. That's the end of it. So that was the purpose of this particular resolution. Nothing to do directly with the application currently pending before the planning board.
So thank you for that analysis and summary. Appreciate it. What I saw included some townhouses in the rear.
Yes.
But is that where you're proposing to the open space now?
Yes.
So you're willing to do away with it? Is that part of the agreement?
We're negotiating we're negotiating that now.
That's a negotiation between the town and the proposed developer. That has nothing to do with the resolution before the board tonight, which is with the current owner. All the current owner cares about is getting his property sold and getting his money, and he can't do that unless the current developer had the zoning done, gets an approval, and then ultimately closes. So that's
the planning board has yet, the hearing for the planning board still has to take place before really that resolution is resolved.
Well, not only the planning board hearing has to take place, and after the hearing, my guess is there's a potential for appeals. So any appeals have to be resolved because and again, I've said this a dozen times, but I've never seen the contract. I'm not a party to the contract between the developer and the owner.
Sure.
My experience indicates that typically when you're buying property like this, you say it's subject to approval.
Contingency.
And approvals where all the times for appeals have been run, or if there are appeals, those appeals have been resolved. So it's full and final approval, no further appeals, and then in this case, that the actual closing takes place with the developer. So that is the only purpose of the current resolution, which we're carrying with everything else. But
the resolution, if approved, doesn't affect the ability to get that 17 acres.
No, the resolution is, again, I'm just going to say it again because I know you do understand, but just in case someone else doesn't. The 17 acres is a negotiation with the current developer, which would result in him taking building units maybe at another location, if that works. If it doesn't work, they're proceeding currently with the entire application. If that does work, then there'll be some land given to the township. They'll take other land, and they'll develop the townhouse units there.
So there's a land swap here involved too?
That would be what would happen.
Yeah, we're working on the land swap. We have an obligation to finish our COA obligation, of course, or fair share housing.
Yes.
So I'm trying to get this developer to go there.
Okay.
That's
so
the crux
you'll
of it.
probably still get the units, and these units that are proposed, they are not active adult. They are
No, they're townhouse units. You know, I think if you listen, and you said you're a planner, right? I mean, a lot of times when you talk to planners, they believe that the townhouse units usually doesn't involve, you know, when they're, whatever the price range is going to be, usually it's not a lot of children because it's usually more active adults than children, but it is not going to be, you know, the 62 and over kind of development.
So there could be some impact on the schools.
Well, we're down about 800 students, so but it's not going to nearly bring it up to what we were 5-8 years ago.
Right.
I don't think the schools necessarily are the major concern right now. I think the major concern, certainly, you know, there are traffic concerns both from the development but also from the roadway improvements that will be obtained that are being paid for by the developer without the town having to pay for the widening for the initially. There's still a potential, but probably it's not going to be approved by DOT for a slip road, but the widening of Deal Road and a jug handle instead of having to make a left trying to get onto Deal Road.
I understand the benefits of all those things that are necessary.
And the settlement of litigation, all benefits.
Right. Okay, well, you know where my head is at in
Great.
my organization. I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Thanks for your comments. Anybody else? Oh.
Hi, I would just like to follow Mr. Kesting's conversation with
Name
you
and
all.
address. Put Jackie in there.
Oh, Jackie Wenzel, 610 Deal Road. This is really awkward tonight. There's nothing better for us to hold. Okay, before I get into my thing, I think at future meetings, is it possible for the public to have a dais? Because I feel like people feel a little nervous when they get up here. Not me, of course, but some people do, and that's why I get up all the time, because I think we'd feel more comfortable if we had a little dais here and we had a microphone in it. We're not just standing like out in the wind like this.
Okay.
Is that something you'd consider?
We'll consider anything.
Okay. Anyway, just it was interesting to hear the story again, and I know we are in a case right now appealing the word substantially consistent with the master plan versus consistent. So that is an issue. And I heard you say, there was two things I wanted to ask you, Mr. Arbus. One of them was that you said that you did acquire all that green, open space with Green Acres where the library sits today.
No, I'm not sure if we acquired all that space. I really don't remember. I think
Some
Green Acres contributions. I don't really remember how much of the purchase price was with Green Acre funds or whatever. And I don't know if the mayor remembers. But
You just said, I heard you say something, well, the deal was, like we had that space and then the deal was the rest would be commercial. And I was just curious, who was the deal with, like that the rest
that was that was what became what we refer to as the Stop and Shop,
Right.
which was 74 acres, whatever, 42 acres going to the town at 1 point something million. I don't remember the number. They were selling the balance of, and we say 32 acres. I'm not exactly sure how many acres it is, but that acreage going where the owner was going to sell to a developer, but part of it was to rezone to allow for a commercial, in essence, large shopping center at that site. But while maintaining the existing zoning as well, and that commercial zone was an overlay zone so that any person coming in could develop it with the commercial / office in the front and residential in the back, or then could take advantage of the idea of developing the whole site commercially. But to do that, let me finish, to do that commercial site, they also then had to make all of the roadway improvements, which was the proposed slip road and the jug handle.
But that deal was made at the same time you were making the agreement to keep some of it open space for the town. It's just you had said when you were telling the story, we agreed that we would get Green Acres for the space, which sits the library, and then the rest was going to be commercial. So I was just wondering who was that conversation with? Who was that deal
I
made
wasn't the
with?
attorney at the time. I'm just telling you what happened, and I believe the gentleman said that was purchased in part with Green Acre funds, and I said, I think so. I don't really know, but I believe that's correct.
Yeah, that's what, well, in the article in the Asbury Park Press, Mayor Weldon was interviewed, and he stated that it was Green Acres funding, they acquired that space.
Okay.
And in that interview, he said he's seeking more Green Acres funding because he would like to preserve all of it. He highly discouraged any kind of commercial there. So I'm wondering, what made that change?
We've had that conversation several times.
No.
I know, and each time.
Green Acres, when you had the Green Acres, part of the deal was the other part would be commercial.
Yeah, I've said that before because it was rezoned all at around the same. Before we ever purchased the 42 acres, part of it was the property getting rezoned. I've said that several times to you. This is not the first time you've heard that. We've actually discussed that. So it was going to be rezoned for the balance of the property, and the owner was selling the back portion of the property, 42 acres, approximately, to the township.
But Weldon wasn't aware of that because after the Green Acres was already acquired and agreed to. I'm just saying, it's the history. It's the day of our history today. That the Asbury Park Press in '99 has it very clearly stated that he acquired the Green Acres for that land, and he's seeking more Green Acres for the rest. Tonight was the first time I heard you say we agreed to the land, and the agreement was we were going to do commercial on the other part of it. So I just wanted, if you could clarify what that meant.
I've clarified it a lot of times. I've never said that. I've said, and we've argued about this before, I've said repeatedly that the actual purchase, I don't know when they obtained the approval from Green Acres, but the actual purchase of that property, it was all at the same time that the property was being rezoned. This was all part of one transaction, and not one transaction, but it was all done at the same time. So I don't know what Mayor Weldon said in 1999 to the Asbury Park Press. I mean, I've seen the article, but by 2000 and whatever year it was.
That's the history of how transactions took place. And it just sounded, I heard something I thought I heard differently tonight, that it was all part of one deal, and I wanted to know who made that deal.
Okay.
The other thing is, you mentioned the master plan, and as far as I know, our master plan has not been updated since 1990.
Well, you know what? This is part of the litigation, and I believe you don't quite understand what a master plan is, because the master plan has been amended several times since 1990. And like the Constitution has amendments, when the master plan has amendments, and they are open to a public hearing and then adopted by the board, they become part of the master plan. That was done as it relates to this specific property in, I believe, 2000, when this property was then rezoned for the commercial development as an overlay zone. That was part of an amendment to the master plan that went before a public hearing before the planning board, was then adopted by the planning board, published in the newspaper, sent to the neighboring municipalities, sent to whoever, the county, and officially adopted. That is then part of the master plan.
So that's a zoning change. Is that what you're calling an adoption? Is when we have zoning changes?
Nothing to do with the zoning change. There's two different aspects. There's a master plan that was created in 1990, and every 10 years, I believe now, you're supposed to do a re-examination of the master plan. I think I've set forth, and it's on our site, each and every re-examination of the master plan that's been done, and each one that was adopted, and that one in 2000 was clearly adopted and done in a public hearing with notice and whatever else was involved, and then zoning followed. But the master plan is different than the zoning.
Well, it says that our master plan hasn't been redone since 1990, so I understood every 10 years, or is it every 6 years, that a full assessment of our master plan should be done, and there are certain procedures that are more detailed, I guess, than these amendments. Because the whole idea of a master plan is to police smart development and keep a township or a city in balance. So if we just rezone when a developer needs zoning changes, as we recently did with the Paramount development, we had resolutions that are allowing a gas station and convenience store 70 connected townhouses, and a hotel, 4-story hotel. These were all zoning changes that had to be amended. Have these now been amended onto our master plan because it was a zoning change?
Amended onto the master plan. These are zone changes, and when you make a zone change, okay, what the planning board, that's why the law is when the township says we want to change the zoning, they then submit that proposed change to the planning board. The planning board reviews the change and makes the determination as to whether or not that change is substantially consistent with the master plan and the master plan amendments. So while you're talking about one property, when they did the reexamination, and they've done several, but when they did the reexamination in, I believe, 2000, that reexamination included not just this property, there were 6 or 7 other properties that were part of that reexamination. So basically, someone looks at that and says, okay, everything else seems to be okay, we don't need to change, but we're changing these 4, 5, or 6 properties and amending the master plan to reflect that.
So when are we going to do a full new master plan that will replace the 1990 master plan? Are you working on that now, Mayor?
No, I have no idea.
No, I think what Mr. Arbus is telling you is a reexamination is what you're talking about every 10 years.
Yes.
And we've had several reexaminations consistent with that. So the reexamination of the master plan has been done several times since then.
So why is it still dated a 1990 master plan?
That was the original date of that revised master plan.
Okay, that's the
So we never had one before 1990 is what you're saying?
You know what? There came a point in time, and I don't remember when this was, where they basically, the legislature said the town should have the master plan. I don't know when that was. And then the master plan should be re-examined, and at some point the law became every 10 years.
Okay.
And it gets re-examined, and if there are changes to the master plan, those are then reflected in amendments to the master plan. And that's what this town has done, and it's done, and we've set this forth in the matter that you're involved in the briefs. It's been done, and done properly with publication and with notice, etc.
Oh, there's just our planner said it was substantially inconsistent, and that's what the conversation is in regard to the law.
Substantially consistent.
Inconsistent is what he says. He doesn't.
Oh, your planner.
Our planner says connected townhouses, urban-style townhouses, are substantially inconsistent with 40 single-family homes, and that has a lot to do with the environment and water seeping into the ground and impervious ground cover and all the things that we've discussed on the environmental side.
I'm not cutting you off. We need to leave this room at 7 sharp tonight, and I think I made that clear.
Okay.
And we're going to have another meeting next week.
So I have one more
I
thing.
didn't want anybody else to be heard.
I just then wanted to.
No, take your time. As long as the public's okay with you taking the floor, I'm okay with it.
No.
About 5 minutes, that's it.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just while Bill is here, I wanted to ask about the Green Acres and what they can do. Is it possible for you to to move forward with that in time for us to get the 2019 funding?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's
you
2
mean
more
for the
years.
Green Acres?
Yes.
Well, can I tell you something? We have 2 people. I've moved to the front, so I guess they want to speak. I'm sure you know both of them. So my feeling is you've taken up time, and I understand tonight's is unusual.
Well, it's unusual. This was surprise. We had an agenda ourselves, and we learned very last minute that we had this very short window, so that's not fair to the public. And I've asked, could the Board of Adjustments move their meeting?
No.
Okay. But they're taking our time away, and we're the public.
But you have 2 people who I'm sure are probably your side. So let them speak.
I know, but I just wanted to know.
You want her to continue?
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity for talking. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, thank you.
Have you spoken about a land swap? Specifically, where is that located?
Okay, so the Ocean Glades property?
Exactly, yes.
That's the property I'm talking about.
At the end of Cindy Lane.
Correct.
Now, are you aware that that is contaminated?
Yes.
You still believe that is a appropriate piece of land to
It can be
swap?
developed. The letter we got recently from environmental agencies was that it will not impact development, except for just they need to monitor for another 2 years. So I'm not going to kid you. I mean, it can be developed, can be built on. I think you can't use the water for certain aspects, but I'm not going to kid you. The the folks I'm trying to land swap with are acutely aware of this, and
Okay.
it's playing into that a little bit. So
There's
I have
no-
plan A, B, C, and D to try to save some of that property. So if A doesn't work, B doesn't work, C, D, one of those plans are going to work.
So they're telling you it does not need to be remediated before it becomes residential.
Mike, what was the letter?
Really? Okay.
No,
Can we be
there's-
privy to that letter?
I have the paperwork in my
Okay.
office.
I may want to follow up on
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? We have one more.
2 minutes.
Name and address for the record.
Hi, Monica Mazurchik. I live in West Long Branch. Thank you. And thank you for the beautiful, and congratulations on the 170 years
Yeah.
of continued
You now have a minute.
gracious living. Thank you. And for the education on master planning and amendments. I still have an issue with the fourth paragraph language in the resolution, as well as page 2 of 4 of the proposed agreement, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, and on page 3 of 4, paragraph 2, because all of them, in my mind, are really have nothing to do with what you're trying to accomplish with the resolution. The language is unnecessarily prejudicial in that it invites the planning board and everyone to approve, and the same goal can be accomplished by simply deleting that language and saying that upon the complete closing of the matter, the all issues and legal issues will be dismissed with prejudice. So I just think that still remains prejudicial and unnecessary and smacks of, inappropriate, the appearance of impropriety.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Just so you know, the planning board is going to have their first hearing on this matter, the 25th, before this resolution's put in. I just want you to
The
understand.
resolution has nothing to do with
Right. I don't want you to think we're pushing that in before their meeting so they can get their approval on. Okay. All right. We're out of time. Another minute. Anybody else? Scott, 1 minute and 13 seconds. What? Is it 7 or
59, 58,
well, we're going to
57.
have the gavel.
Scott Sharp, Wanamassa. I had spent a couple of days or parts of a couple of days this week over here in this building to look at what was told as a complete and final plan from Paramount 35 acres developer, and it's a big stack of paper, and the problem that still exists because this township has been unwilling to do anything about it, which has been access to that. The only way I got access to it is I go and stand up there while people are getting their permits and things. It is not friendly, and the public is given 10 days to look at this before the planning board looks at it. The township has had 4 years working on this plan, and we're given 10 days to look at that and then to be ready for our 5 minutes in front of the planning board. This process is just not very friendly, and when I got into it, I found that we now have 14 basins to store and process runoff stormwater.
This would be for the planning
Yes.
board. Wouldn't be for the council, Scott. You should save those comments for planning board.
I understand,
Okay.
but we got to this point, and the council guided this developer every inch of the way.
Not on
for 3 or 4
engineering.
years.
All that was subject to engineering, subject to DOT, subject to
We've got a
EPA,
lousy
DEP.
design, and
No,
it
that's on
shouldn't have
them.
ever gotten to this point.
Expose them at the planning board. That's
Oh,
your,
it will be.
Okay.
But I can at least express my points here. There, I'm given 5
Gotcha.
minutes.
Understood. We're gonna.
And the process that this town operates under is not fair.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to have to adjourn the meeting, though. Thank you. And come back next week.
Oh, I'll be back.
We'll be here. Thank you all very much. Someone make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Scott?
Second.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Council members of Chair.
Yes.
Napolitani.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
And Mayor Sisson.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.